Like all subjects in physical science, there is the pure aspect and the application aspect. The pure aspect generally deals with the prose and the theory aspects of the subject. And when it comes to applied, it focuses largely on the application of the knowledge that you get from learning. So here, over the next few weeks, we're not going to be bothering ourselves with the voluminous subject of Vedas, but rather focus more on how the Vedic injunctions can be brilliantly used by one and all, the lazy, the extremely swift, the intelligent, the ignorant, and not so intelligent. All of the people can use this, and the subject matter has a utility value at a universal level. And therefore, it is considered to be very dear, not just to me, but to several of the people who have learnt and preached Vedanta much before me, starting from Lord Krishna himself in the Bhagavad Gita. So applied Vedanta is going to focus largely on how we can apply the principles of Vedas to make our life from now until our last to stay in bliss, to stay in a state of equanimity, whereby whether we face difficulties or we are thriving in success, we know our limitations as human beings and are able to withstand the vicissitudes of life as and when it approaches or it hits us. The truth is, none of us in this world is exempt from experiencing the vicissitudes, because that is life. Now, the second sentence talks about empowering to become self-independent. When I use the word empowering, it kind of denotes that you're not empowered already. And it may mislead you that who is this monk sitting in front of me trying to empower me? The truth is, all of us are empowered. And the greater truth is, we don't realize we are empowered. What's going to happen in the session essentially is the ability for us to discover that power that is inside us, which the Vedas will deliver. That is Vedas' promise. Next point talks about self-independent. In a world that we live, there's no way that we can deliver anything without depending on the world. World consists of three things: people, objects, and events. It's impossible for any one of us to carry on with our life without depending on this world. So the dependence is very natural for progression. When I say self-independent, I'm really talking about self-independence from a psychological perspective. What I talked about earlier is more relevant in the physical plane, where you must interact with one another. Then comes the other aspect of human being, which is the psychological plane. There, the need to become dependent has just come about from millennia because we have been depending on others at the physical plane, and this has naturally transcended from the physical aspect to the psychological aspect. And that's where the problem comes. When you start depending on this world for psychological comfort, then you're bound to face hurdles. Because this dependence is a dependent dictated by your mind, which is sitting inside your body. And what you're trying to do is to resolve an issue which your mind has sitting inside by depending on an external source. Therefore, automatically the equation has become wrong. And that's why we keep battling in this world, in all our relationships, because we become psychologically dependent on this world. And the reality is, this world is a constantly changing reality. It's not an unchanging reality. The world is a constantly changing reality. And so when you're interacting with this constantly changing reality of the world and world's components, for your psychological comfort, then you're going to definitely get beaten up. And we don't know how to resolve it. Vedas has the answer to that. But before I start the subject itself, the learning methodology for learning the subject matter, which is entirely metaphysics, is an extremely important requirement. Learning metaphysics is exactly opposite of learning anything in the physical science world. And let me explain that to you. If you have a goal, for example, which is good health at the physical level, then you can start working towards that through this process. You have money, you can spend the money on different things. And part of that money you will want to spend on health products, gym, all that stuff. When you do all of this, eventually you end up with an answer, and that answer is good health. So you started with money, spending, evaluating options that you have, those options that are suitable to you. And when you exercise these options, eventually you end up with good health. The question is, can you sustain that good health despite the fact that you've used this formula of nicely analyzing the situation using the wherewithal that you have? But there's no guarantee at the end of the day. Because in the physical world, physical science, knowledge keeps evolving. It's never static. Now let's look at learning metaphysics. In learning metaphysics, the answer or the knowledge, which is the final culmination of the processes that you use, is given to you in advance. You're not asked to work through various processes to arrive at knowledge or answer to your question. Here, the knowledge is going to be given to you directly first. And then you're going to work backwards to understand whether this knowledge actually makes sense or not for me. Why this? Because the knowledge that is going to come to you from now for the next few weeks is abstruse. You cannot see it. There's no physicality. Therefore, only knowledge can be given to you. Now you should have a question. Where is this knowledge coming from? Is it yours? And the answer is, it is Vedic knowledge. So the Vedas are already there available to us. But the Vedas itself is telling us, don't accept it. Accept it only after you understand the concepts that are given in the Vedas. Otherwise, reject it, it says. So what we are doing to do now is go in the reverse. Knowledge first, and then what do? We challenge the knowledge by saying, is it right? Wrong. Is it good for me? Not good for me. So when you challenge the knowledge, then the logic will unfold by itself. You cannot use logic to understand a subject matter which rests beyond the science, beyond logic. You will err there, completely there. You will not understand anything to do with metaphysics if you start using logic to understand metaphysics. So the first principle in understanding Vedas is not to use the logic. So what do? So you move to the second step. So the first step in understanding metaphysical aspects or subject is Shravanam. You see on the screen, Shravanam. Shravanam means hearing. Now, typically in our physical science world, when we are learning something, the speaker says something and you hear. You hear really not much except the words that come out of it. But in reality, the word also has an important element called the sound. Sound actually travels from the speaker to you. And then you kind of capture the sound to the word. So when something is spoken to you, it is not just the word, but the word and the sound. So sound plays an extremely important role here in understanding metaphysics, because metaphysics, there is nothing physical in its aspect. So you really have to understand it from within. And to understand from within, words cannot work through from within. You need sound, which causes vibrations. Let me explain this to you with a simple idea. If I say, be kind, you're going to ask me a question. What is kindness? So to understand kindness, you have to become kind to somebody. You do many things. Does it make you understand that you have been kind? Not until there's a kind of sensation that gets created inside your mind. That's the sensation of the bliss that you will get when you extend kindness to somebody else. So it's a vibration that takes place inside. It's a sensation that happens inside. Vibration is sound. Sound is sensation. With that, you get to understand this metaphysical truth about kindness. Same thing applies. When I'm extraordinarily kind to you, you don't perceive kindness. You get to understand kindness of a person through the vibration that he sends, and the vibration is the one which travels from the one who gives you the kindness to you through the space. Therefore, to understand metaphysical truth, Shravanam becomes extremely important. So, all of you have to pay attention, not just to the words, but to the sound that reverberates from the words. Just how I explained to you the aspect of kindness, which is purely metaphysical truth. First off, we said that applied Vedanta is specifically meant for empowering you to become self-independent. And I said that I am not going to empower you. I'm presenting to you a knowledge which, when you assimilate, introspect, and practice, automatically the empowerment will come. Does it mean that you're not empowered as of today? And the answer to that question is you are. It's just that it's not at the optimum level that is required for you to stay away from the emotional entanglement that we all have. The emotional entanglement we have because we all the time feel not secured enough. And every time we interface with the world outside, and every time there is a setback, our emotions are disturbed, and therefore we look for some comfort from elsewhere. And clearly, that equation is wrong because the discomfort is actually taking place within your mind. And you want to settle that discomfort by resorting to some kind of a support from the external factors. We shall therefore call this more as escapism rather than addressing a problem that you have. And depending on the external world, whatever that may be, is unpredictable, unsustainable. Therefore, we must become empowered to be self-independent. And this self-independence is to do with the emotional stability, to be very strong. That's what it refers to. Applied Vedanta, as I mentioned, deals with the practical application of the various injunctions given to us by these great scriptures called the Vedas. There will be some pure Vedanta, just for you to understand from where we have arrived at the practical application of these Vedic concepts. I mentioned to you about the role of Guru. Clearly, we all must understand the specific role, and there is only one role of this Guru, which is to enable you to entangle or come out of the grips of an ignorance that you suffer from. This has nothing to do with the ignorance relating to academics. This is purely relating to the wrong understanding of the body, mind, and the consciousness equation. The Guru's job is to make you understand that. And once you understand that distinctly, that there is a distinct entity, each one of them is a distinct entity, and it is wrong to club body, mind, and the consciousness as a one bundle. And this is exactly why in the world, science is still grappling with the idea of where is this consciousness? How is this consciousness working through the human body-mind equation? So the Guru is going to explain to you how these are three distinct entities, and that You must release the consciousness from the clutches of this bundle that has come to being in your mind because of gross misperception.